Good afternoon. This is Kevin Quilliam with InClimb. I'll be running the Green Grant Delaware and SEU Upfront SREC Purchase Program webinar today. For those of you on the phone, audio is available on the phone as well as on your computer if you'd like to use it. For this webinar, we'll be using the chat box in order to enter messages, and so if you have questions. And so if you have any questions, please enter those using the chat feature in your screen. And if we see the questions and they're relevant to what we're talking about right then, we'll answer them. Otherwise, there'll be a time at the end where we'll go through all the chat questions and answer. The phones are muted, and so we won't be able to hear you if you ask questions on the phone. So please use the chat box. Today we'll be giving you an overview of the program. We'll go over a sample grant application, a sample upfront SREC application, and then we'll move to the questions and answers feature using the chat feature. So the programs we're going to cover today: the Green Grant program that covers Delmarva customers, the Green Grant program that covers all Delaware customers, and the SEU Upfront SREC Purchase Program, which also covers all Delaware customers. The Delmarva Customer Green Grant Program covers all 4 technologies, and it's open to all customer types: residential, non-residential, and nonprofit. For the PV and wind side, the systems are limited to 50 kilowatts, and the grant schedule you can see on the screen before you. Just one thing to note with the grant schedule: if you have a system, for example, that was 5,001 watts, you would receive, and you were residential, you would receive 85 cents per watt for the first 5,000 watts, and then you would receive 25 cents for that last watt. And so the first 5,000 watts of your system are paid at the higher rate, even if your system is larger than 5,000 watts. And then the remaining 45,000 watts are paid at the second lower rate. And for solar, hot water, and geothermal systems, this is the schedule that's in place. You can see in this case that the residential and non-residential and nonprofit schedule is different than the residential schedule with the maximum amount. And then the Green Grant program for all Delaware customers is open to all Delaware-sited facilities. The only requirement is that you be located in Delaware. It doesn't matter who your utility is. It's only open to the non-residential and nonprofit sectors, so it is not open to the residential sector, and it is only open to the solar, hot water, and geothermal technology sectors. And you can see the grant levels in the chart here. All this information can also be found on the website, greengrantdelaware.com. You can see the link in the lower left-hand side of each of these screens. So you can go to the documentation section at any time and see these same charts. The SEU Upfront SREC Purchase Program is also open to any Delaware customer. The only requirement is that the system must be located in Delaware. Also open to all customer types: residential, non-residential, and nonprofit. The size limitation is 50 kilowatts, so at or below 50 kilowatts for the size. And the system must have an interconnection of after August 4th, 2014, which is the opening day of the program this upcoming Monday. The system also must not have received a grant at the pre-August 4th, 2014 levels. If you've done a Part 1 application, you can opt to move to the lower level and do a new Part 1 application on the Green Grant Delaware website and receive that lower level. You'll have to let us know so that we can cancel your initial grant application at the higher levels. The system does have to have an online reporting system, which does not have to be revenue grade. And it does have to have at least one revenue grade meter. So if your online reporting is not revenue grade, then you need to have a revenue grade meter. That could be as simple as an analog meter, an old style utility meter at the site. It does not have to have online reporting. If your online reporting is revenue grade, then you don't need to have a second meter. Payments are made after the system is complete, and once you have a Delaware PSC certification number, which is the indicator we use as a complete system. And this is a first come, first serve program with a budget of $1.5 million per year each year for 2 years. And so while you can complete a Part 1 application, it does not mean that you've reserved your slot. The money is paid out when you've actually completed Part 2, meaning that you have a Delaware PSC certification number for your system. Next, we're going to go through a couple of applications. All applications from August 4th onward are going to be done online at the greengrantdelaware.com website. The previous paper forms will no longer be accepted, and we'll run through how to do that now on the webinar, and on Monday you'll be able to go to the site and do this live. The applicant window opens at 8 a.m. on Monday. Keep in mind that completion of Part 1 is not a reservation of funds. You are dispersed based on your completion of your actual system. And another thing to keep in mind that installers can fill out applications for their clients, so you can just have one logon if you're an installer or a integrator for these systems, and you can fill out the applications. However, the actual owners must be the ones who sign the grant application forms. And there's an option on the forms for you to assign the grant. So for example, an installer could have the customer assign the grant directly to them so that you don't have to go through the hassle of having the customer paid and then have them pay you. If you want to do that, however, the customer, the actual owner of the system needs to sign on that form as well, assigning the grant to a third party. And for all of these applications as we go along, keep in mind you can do as many steps as you want and leave the application. When you come back, you'll be able to pick it back up where you left off. Our website, and on Monday the sign up and the login buttons will be active on the upper right hand corner. You'll need to hit the sign up button the first time that you come to the website and create just standard logon information with your username and password and address and create an account. You only have to do this once, and then you can do multiple applications once you've created a login on this website. So if you're an installer, you create one account and do multiple applications. If you're an installer and you have multiple employees, they can all set up multiple accounts, or they can use one account. It's generally easier if you use one account because then all of your applications that you've done are all in one place, and it's possible to have multiple users logged in at once. It could create some conflicts if they're working on the same applications where you get some results that are unexpected. However, if you're working on different applications, it's possible to have multiple users logged on at once. So that's what we recommend if you're a company with multiple employees using the system. Starting the application. So for any application for any program, when you first log on, you reach the login screen, which is your dashboard, and there is a Start Application button. You just simply press that button and it brings you to the application page. If you have previous applications that you've been on but it left at some stage, those are down below in your dashboard, as well as completed applications. If it's an application that you want to keep going with, just hit continue and it'll take you right back to the step you were at when you left off. For all applications, regardless of program, you start out by giving a description of the facility, the address of the installation, and your address. And then there's a series of questions that the system asks you to determine what you're eligible for. So you need to put in your interconnected utility or the utility where you're at, depending on the type of system that you plan on completing, what type of system you plan on installing, and what your revenue type is, residential, non-residential, or non-profit. Once you do that, the application will actually dynamically fill out which programs you're eligible for, the SEU program or the Green Energy Grant. You can select both of these programs, or you can select, if they both show up, you can select both of them and apply for them both at once, or you can do one at a time. If you do one and you'd like to come back and do another one later, the system will remember all the data that you put in and pre-fill that for you, so you can simply do one application and then come back and do the second if you like. Once you select one of the programs that you'd like to do, the system pre-fills out the information that's required for that particular application. In this case, we're going to do a grant application for a PV grant. And so once you click the Delaware Green Energy Grant and you had selected photovoltaic and Delmarva Power, which would be the only system that would be eligible for that particular grant, then the system would pre-fill this, giving you all the information that was required for the grant. All this information is just simply fill out the blanks. There's help on the right-hand side of the screen if you have questions about any of the items, and you can always call or email us if there's anything that you have questions on the application as well. So grant-only application, we'll go through real quick how that runs. We're going to do one grant type, which is PV. All of these are very similar. The required fields are different depending on the technology type, but the way that the forms are filled out is very much the same. So you can see here the series of questions that you need to answer, whether it's new construction, a PPA, power purchase agreement, a lease, or an owner-owned project, information about the modules and manufacturers for the project. And when you filled out all that information, the rebate calculation is automatically calculated for you. When you complete all of the sections, you simply hit Save and Continue, and it moves you to the next step. For all of the rebate, it's going to be the owner contact information. That needs to be the actual owner of the system. Even if the funds are going to the contractor, the funds assignment will be on the next page. So this needs to be the actual owner so that we can contact the owner if we need to. On the next page, you'll see the rebate recipient. You can leave this blank if it's going to be the applicant, but if you would like the contractor or some other third party to receive the rebate, you can fill this out, and then when the form is printed later on, it will have a section that the actual owner will need to sign to assign that grant. The contractor and installer information is all required information, and that's on the next page. This just shows you what's required there. All this information has not changed from the old grant, so this is all the same information that you used to fill out on a paper form is now simply filled out online. And finally, all the supporting paperwork that's required, it must be uploaded here. The grant application will actually be generated for you based on all the questions that you answered before. A PDF will be generated by the system, which you will print out, sign, and then scan and upload. And also required are proof of cost, copy of your electric bill, site-specific schematics, plot diagram, and energy rate of design analysis for this particular grant. And finally, a very important step is the state substitute W-9, which must be completed. This is not a form on the Green Grant Delaware website. It's actually a form on the state of Delaware's website, but it's required for the grant to be dispersed. And so when you do this step, you should click the link that's present there, go to that site, and complete this form on that site. Once you do that, DNREC will be able to disperse your grant to you. If you do not do that, you will not be able to actually receive the funds for your grant until it's done. There's nothing that you have to do back on the Green Grant Delaware website to let us know you've done this. You just simply need to do it, and it has to be done before your grant can be dispersed. Once you've finished your application, it'll take you right back to your dashboard, and your application will show your status here. So right now this is the status part 1 column. So it shows that this particular customer, me, I have one that I submitted. That's the one we just did. And then I have one that I'm on step 4 steps. And this one I could just hit continue and finish it if I like. And this one shows submitted. Once DNREC has verified the part 1 application and approved it, this will change to approved, and on each of these steps you'll receive an email. So you'll receive an email letting you know that it has been submitted and received. You'll get an email when it's been switched to approved by DNREC, meaning your part 1 application is approved. Once your part 1 application is approved, the part 2 column will have a link that will allow you to complete part 2, which is the part that you complete once you've actually finished your system, and that becomes active once you've been approved by DNREC for this application. And so again, at every step you'll receive an email to confirm this as well, and you can always look at your dashboard. There's a question about, a couple questions that came up that I see on the screen that I can answer now. Is DocuSign or electronic signatures acceptable? And in this case, no. All the signatures have to be made on paper and then uploaded to the system. And the question about filling out the W-9 for the customer, the W-9 is who the money actually goes to, and so the W-9 has to be filled out by the person who is receiving the funds. And I should mention that I have Suzanne Sebastian here as well, who's the expert from DNREC, and so she can help us with some of these questions, and that's one that she has particular expertise in. So we'll stop and ask her real quick a question on that. And Suzanne's confirmed that if you assign the grant to a third party, it's the assignee that needs to fill out that substitute W-9. Otherwise, it's the actual customer. And then there's a question about, will the system accept Part 1 applications that are in excess of the $1.5 million budget? That's moving on to the SEU program, so we'll cover that in just a minute when we get there. So that's the basic application process. It's very similar for each technology. It's like using TurboTax for your taxes, basically. It'll figure out what you need, what information you need, and what programs you're eligible for, and you simply fill out the information that's requested, and it generates the forms for you. So once you've finished Part 1 and are ready for Part 2, the Part 2 link becomes active, and then you'll go through a very similar set of steps to provide the information that's required for Part 2. Grant Part 2 requirements are listed here. Again, these are the same requirements that the grant program has always required, and some of the requirements differ by technology. So again, the grant applications are done the same way. We aren't going to go through an application for each different technology, but you'll certainly be able to do that on Monday. We'll go through an upfront SREC purchase application next. For the upfront SREC purchases, it's possible to do those simultaneously, and if so, the information that's duplicative between the two programs would be auto-filled for you, so you wouldn't have to do that. Again, we're at the initial screen here where you select your utility, your revenue type, and your system type. And if you're eligible for the SEU program, which would mean that you had a less than 50 kilowatt solar array, you could click the SEU program, and then the system would pop up with the information that's required for the SEU program. Again, this is cookie cutter information that's required, contact information about the system, and again, you can assign the rebate recipient to be a third party, just like you can for the grant program. Once you finish the SEU upfront app, again, it will let you know and take you to the dashboard with the Part 1 and Part 2. And Part 2 for the SEU program is the documentation that's required is the signed transfer agreement, which will be generated. That's just your contract saying that, that you'll keep your system up for 20 years in producing SRECs. The Delaware PSC certification number is required. The actual form isn't needed, but the PSC cert number is needed. And a signed application for other state certification numbers if requested. The SEU reserves the right to register systems in other states, and so they may require forms that you would have to sign. And finally, the system will request bank information, and all the payments for the SEU upfront SREC purchase program will be made by direct deposit to your bank information, your bank account that you provide. So we'll move now to questions and answers. And I see a couple. One of them I already pushed off, so I'll go ahead and answer that one. Is whether applications will be accepted in excess of the 1.5 million. And so the Part 1 is not a reservation system, and so it's possible you can have people in the Part 1 process who finish their systems, and so the money is dispersed as systems provide us a Delaware PSC cert number. And so that's the final arbiter as to first in and first out, is what date we receive that in a completed Part 2 application. And a completed Part 2 application cannot be completed until you have a Delaware PSC cert number. And we will have a counter on the website that will let you know how much money has been dispersed and how much we have in Part 1. But again, you're to be cautioned that Part 1 is not a reservation, and there may be $10 million worth of applications in Part 1, and we still haven't met the limit in Part 2. And the guy that finished the system quickly and went through Part 2 might end up getting his funds, even if someone had finished a Part 1 application months or years before. The next question is about the owner section. And I think that this is the kind of a leasing question, saying should the owner be the homeowner or the owner of the system. The facility location is listed in one area, and that's the actual physical location of the facility, and so that would be the home upon which PV system would be located. And so that Suzanne's telling me that needs to be the name on the electric bill. And so, for example, for the SEU program, the owner of the SRECs is actually listed separately, and you would put that there. So if you were the leasing company, that would be the leasing company's place there, and that would be different from the facility address. There's a question about whether contractors will be informed of the current balance of the funding. On the SEU program, there will be a countdown clock on the website, which will let you know how much has been dispersed and how much has been enrolled in Part 1. And so that information will be available in real time. And the question about Part 2 submissions, there's a question as to whether Part 2 submissions will continue to be accepted and queued after the $1.5 million budget is gone for 2014. Unfortunately, Tony DePrima, the SEU, is here also, but just stepped out, and so we will have to get back to you on that question. That is a good question that I don't have the answer to right now. Looks like we have a couple questions more coming in here. The question is, does the online system remember the contractor, installer, assignee, or must that be re-entered every time? So right now, it does not remember that information, but that's looks like a good suggestion to us to have it remember. We'll try and have a button there where you'll be able to fill in your previously used information for the probably the contractor or the installer would be the two that would be easiest to program that for. Okay, I don't see any more questions at this point. Feel free to give us a call at this number anytime during business hours, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. We may have to do some research and get back to you, or you can email us at customer service. And I got the wrong address on there, so customer service at greengrantdelaware.com address for that. And again, this is a new program, and we are working things out that they're a little bit different from the old program. And so if there's something that you have as a suggestion or a way that we can make the program better, please provide that input to us, and we will be happy to incorporate it. Thanks everyone for coming. And one last thing, we'll post a copy of this webinar on the Green Grant Delaware website as well. So if any of your colleagues or anyone that you know who was interested in the webinar but wasn't able to see it, they can go ahead and view it there at their leisure. Thank you.